Welcome back to Video Head Cleaner. Video Heads, a movie podcast where two or more homosexuals take a big hit of a movie and leave your head spinning as we take you on a wild ride breaking down the film. Today's movie is Groundhog Day. Join us as we dive deep into the 1993 classic starring Bill Murray and Andie MacDowell, which is mostly comedy, but part existential horror, showing what would happen if you had to live the same day over and over and over for years, if not decades, frankly, based on what we saw in the movie. How you doing, Tommy?
I'm doing well. How are you, Kyle?
I am doing great. So, let's talk about this. I kind of remember this as a unique film, frankly, or as kind of like pioneering the time loop genre.
Yeah.
Well, apparently that's not the case. There's a few things that preceded this, frankly, but this is really the one that popularized it, if anything.
Yeah, no, this film definitely has had its effect on popular culture. Just the idea of a Groundhog Day scenario, of being caught in some kind of time loop of some kind, or some kind of recurring deja vu scenario that takes on qualities of the surreal or the metaphysical or strange. Frequently also it takes on very existential qualities too, right? And there's an enormous amount of that to talk about in this film. This film is one of my favorite films, and I've seen this film a number of times. When I think about it, just throughout my life, I have enjoyed this film enormously every time I've seen it. I've been delighted every time, though I think that this is the first time when I've ever really just analyzed the film, actually studied it, really thought about, does it have metaphors? Does it have meaning? Does it have layers or whatnot? And boy, does it have layers. Wow. Sure I appreciated this film enormously before, but it's just like a million times more so now, just because what a complex little film. It's just, what a gem. What a gem.
It's a very push and pull between philosophical and comedic, the way they play it and whatnot, and come to find out, and I'll touch on this later, but that was almost not intentional, but Harold Ramis, the director, was very much pushing for a more comedic tone, while Bill Murray was pushing for a more philosophical tone. Yeah. And they kind of clashed over this a lot, to not great effect, frankly. Or great effect in the movie. It worked out great, but not great for their personal relationship stuff.
It basically ruined their relationship completely. They didn't speak again until Harold Ramis on his deathbed, basically.
Yeah. It killed a decades-long friendship, a really good working relationship on what they did. Yeah. But, it's wonderful in that regard. I do, just going back slightly, it kind of did pioneer its own little subgenre of stuff. I wouldn't call those films copycats, as that's really derivative or to say about them, but there are some really notable ones, like Palm Springs was a very recent one with Andy Samberg and Christina Milioti, which is fantastic. I'd love to cover that at some point. Yeah. Happy Death Day, which is actually done by the director of Drop. Edge of Tomorrow, the Tom Cruise one, where he just dropped in with the aliens and lives the same day over and over, which they stupidly ended up naming Live, Die, Repeat after it got released to DVD for whatever reason. I don't know. But it's just to name a few of those things. And it's such a neat concept that I don't blame anybody for wanting to play with it, living the same day over and over, and what would you do if you did, and memorized all the things happening and stuff, and would you look like a god or a wizard, frankly, when you do?
Another show that uses Russian Doll.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. It's a super good show. They do an episode of Supernatural on it, I know. It just pops up all over, I think. I think there's a Star Trek episode, frankly. It's just a very interesting concept. But I think it's done to great effect in this movie.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
So, before we get too much into it, what stuck in your head about this movie before you rewatched it, sort of analysis-wise? Because you said you've seen it a bunch of times, and I have too.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's watching before, I've always appreciated it as a great comedy. It's very lighthearted and whimsical for as heavy as it easily could be, which is just that's a feat in its own right. Directed by Harold Ramis, and I'd say very well done. Again, just this film is light as air, and but it deals with very dense, heavy philosophical themes and concepts.
There's a whole suicide section, so I mean, for sure, it does do a good job of keeping things pretty light based on what it could be.
And just again, as I said earlier, I've appreciated this film my entire life. I'm trying to think of the first time I saw it. It would have been when I was a young teenager, probably pretty soon after it was released. The main character struggles and becomes a better person and gets the gal in the end, and it's has a bit of sentimentality on it, but just enough. It never felt overbearing. It was just a great lighthearted comedy with a lot going on under the surface.
It certainly does.
And I think even without just peeling back the layers and analyzing it as such, there's so much going on that you're willing. Everything kind of makes sense. Everything kind of fits together just because it's very tightly philosophical. So there are a lot of different levels you can appreciate it on just, because of that. So,
which is a very funny thing, because whenever I wrote down before we were watching the film, I mean, the main character's a dirtbag too. And so he kind of
he starts off as one.
Yeah.
For sure.
He kind of learns a bunch of lessons in this. I remember him having the groundhog in his lap, letting him drive the car. Don't drive angry. Don't drive angry.
No, the various moments when he's, and we'll get into this shortly, when he's learning about the various town folk and manipulating them based upon his increasingly supernatural knowledge of them and their lives and their backstories and all that, and robbing an armored car and buying a Cadillac and a cowboy outfit and just
punching people he finds annoying after a while.
Sure, we can all relate to the dramatic arc that Phil, Bill Murray's character, goes through. As strange an arc as that is, I think we can all relate to every phase of it, And so again, it's why the film it's so easy to appreciate, because it's so philosophically solid. You don't have to go at it with a fine-tooth comb and a microscope to appreciate. 'Cause you kind of feel it. You kind of feel it.
You can appreciate it on many levels. I agree with that, for sure. So all right, let's get into Groundhog Day stuff on this. So we do open with as Tommy just mentioned, Bill Murray's character's name, Phil Connors. We open with him being a weatherman and being a funny guy, being a weatherman against a blue screen, delivering a little charming weatherman monologue.
Well, and again, this opening scene, we spent a lot of time in the opening scene of Death of a Unicorn, and it got me thinking, I wonder if this opening scene actually has more meaning to it than I ever really appreciated. And I got to thinking, well, it kind of does. Like when you first see Bill Murray, he's just kind of standing in front of a blank screen, and you can kind of figure out that he's reacting to what would be behind them on the camera, right? The actual map and the weather symbols as they're moving across the map and all that, and he's gesturing according to where he's anticipating all that to be. You can understand what he's doing, but he's just kind of making the gestures and going through the motions, And there's something I think meaningful about that, right? He's kind of, weathermen are famous and notorious for having a job, even though they're right half the time only, right? And so,
which comes into play in the movie, for sure.
So you can't take him seriously. You can't really trust him. He's just kind of going through the motions. It's the kind of empty gestures with this kind of glib, kind of shitty attitude, just kind of right there, and it kind of sets. It's like, sure, yes, now you know that he's the weatherman, but I don't know, he's. It kind of is giving you a little taste of what he's about when he starts out.
For sure, he's just being a big goober in it, and it's a fun watch because of that in this opening scene where he's he does a little blowing thing as the clouds blow across the screen to make it look like he does it. He says, "Oh my God, the Eastern Seaboard's about to get hit with one of these big blue things," aka like a cold front graphic, you mentioned the scene and its significance, sort of. They actually sort of went back and refilmed this to make it him talking about the blizzard in itself and like the blizzard that becomes sort of key in this, because this was not originally written as part of the thing. There was a lot of rewrites. I mean, you talk about how this movie could have gotten dark. Some of the initial writes of that were pretty dark. It was I forget. I'll find his name in there. But the original writer, Harold Ramis, came in and edited and touched up the script and made it a lot more comedic, frankly.
Sure,
because it was just a whole lot darker of a film.
Oh yeah. Like, and you mentioned blizzards. Blizzards are a powerful motif in the film. They're a powerful symbol. People being frozen in place. Ooh. Pretty grim, at least potentially.
And in a place he hates, it traps him in a place that he does not want to be, frankly. But it does cause him to ultimately learn and grow and stuff, as we'll find out. So he is, when you talk about us seeing him and sort of him being on or sort of his performance thing, as soon as we cut, we do see that he's an asshole. Like, he refers to his coworker's hairdo. He talks about how much he hates what he's going to go do because he talked on air about how he's going to go do Groundhog Day for, as co-anchor says, it's been like 3 years, right? And he sort of says like, 4. Clearly is not a fan of
he's trying to one-up her, but you can tell that he's dying on the inside. Like, this is the time of year that he hates perhaps the most. It's weatherman hell, where you have to make the yearly trek to Puxatawny and deal with a bunch of clueless yokels and their stupid groundhog ways and traditions, and you can just tell everything about him, the way he carries his body, his facial expressions. He just you know that it's going to be hilarious because you know that he hates this so much. And he
does. He's a weatherman named Phil, and he has to go learn about the weather from a rodent named Phil, and I think he just resents that quite a bit, frankly. And we can already tell that there's a bit of the narrative is inviting you to make some comparisons already. Like, Bill Murray's character is Puxatawny Phil. I mean, like, just there it is. He's Puxatawny Phil. He's the groundhog, right? You know, he's Phil. It's Puxatawny Phil. So it already starts you off like it basically holding your hand and putting your hand right on the first connection you need to make. You know, And it's made very clear that he wants to make this an in-and-out thing. He's talking to his coworker who's like, I'll cover the 5 or the 10 o'clock news. And he's like, do you need me to cover the next one? And Bill's like, no, I will be back. Like, I do not want to stay in this stupid town that I do not like. And so, but this is also when he meets his new producer, Rita,
played by Angie McDowell. Rita. She is in front of the blue screen and she's having fun because she's wearing a blue sweater or jacket, right? And so she's just a head and hands floating in space, and you know she's and it, again a kind of an introduction to what she's about. She takes delight in the world around her.
She's very genuine and joyful compared to Bill Murray's curmudgeon vibe we find in that same scene.
Basically, they almost couldn't be any more different. He basically just disdains the world around him. He wants to be somewhere else, and that is basically his mode. He's in Pittsburgh, but he wants to be more national. And when he's in Puxatawny, he wants to get back to Pittsburgh. He always wants to be somewhere else. And that is his mode. And so what's about to happen to him could not be any more perfectly contradictory, which is, again, part of the hilarious send-up, but also the philosophical drama, too, right?
And we see that he keeps people at arm's length throughout this. He just doesn't seem to have any deep relationships with anybody near him, and he's very selfish, talking about how he's going to get a big new newscaster gig type something that also very much sets the tone for his character.
Very egocentric. Very egocentric. He is about himself.
Yeah, say that. No, it's that's
very
it.
much about himself. Again, part of his mode, and it's a very powerful element too, as we'll discover.
So they cut from that scene straight to them being in the van, where we see the team of Bill Murray's character Phil, Rita, played by Andy McDowell again, and then Larry, the cameraman, played by Chris Elliott, who we will touch on later.
Chris Elliott, he's a great actor.
he looks the same like 30 years prior in this. I was shocked. He pretty much looks the same as he is in like recent parts I've seen him in.
You might have seen him in Schitt's Creek, a wonderful TV series. If you haven't seen it, don't drop everything, because that would mean that you're not listening to us. But after this, watch Schitt's Creek if you haven't seen it. It's great.
It is great in that. Yeah. So Rita expresses how this is going to be fun while Phil bitches and moans the whole time, while also expressing that people are morons. And you see their worldviews clashing very clearly here as she's just trying to keep things like, wow, this is going to be so fun. We're going to have a great time. And Bill Murray says, people are morons. People like blood sausages. People like Groundhog Day. Like, it's just like, wow. Okay.
Yeah. Again, Rita is capable of enjoying the world and appreciating it on its terms. Phil is not. And the metaphor of the blood sausage. There you go.
Rita does say, "I like blood sausages." At the end.
I mean, I don't know. I guess Maybe Phil has a point here. Blood sausage, cheese, but yeah.
He's not entirely wrong, and Phil isn't entirely wrong in all this stuff. But he's just very, very cynical, is what we see.
Again, we can perhaps relate to Phil. You know, we can tell that he's kind of a schmuck, but you know, I am a city dweller. I've been a city dweller my entire life, and yes, there have been plenty of moments when I go to a small town with my boyfriend, especially. He's from a small town. Every time I go out there, I'm reminded, wow, I did not grow up in a small town. Like, it's just not necessarily in a bad way, but it's just like, wow, yeah, this is a small town. I'm not used to this at all. And so, like, we can all, if you were a city dweller, you can relate to the fish out of water kind of feeling, perhaps.
Oh, for sure. Because I don't think we touched on it. They're from Pittsburgh. Yeah. That's where he is weatherman there. But they roll in the van to Punxsutawney, which we see on the sign as a town of only 6,700 people. A quite small town, mind you.
Yeah. Wait, how many people again?
6,700.
Okay.
I think 6,702 if anybody's going to write in and bitch at me. I just wrote that because it was a nice round number. Like, don't yell at me.
We hope that the town has grown since this was in 93. So what is that, 30 years? Geez, 30 plus years?
They pull up near a hotel, which Phil also bitches about, and is like, I am not staying here. And Rita says, you're not, actually. And he's taken aback a little bit. He's like, because he's ready to keep bitching about it. And he's like, well, good. You should keep the talent happy. And sort of
he's a diva.
We get the vibe that Phil is kind of a big old bitch who thinks he's too good for most things and most people, especially as he continues talking about being picked up by a big network and is really just looking down his nose at some of these people and this town, this thing, this event.
Yeah, again, very, very egocentric, very, very, his head is stuck way up his ass, just, yeah, full of himself. Yes. Let's see what was.
So we go the next morning to where Phil is at the bed and breakfast, and he wakes up. Yes. You see the very first instance of the alarm clock hitting 6.
Yes. we get our first exposure to "I Got You, Babe" by Cher and Sonny Bono, and at this point we just have no idea how threatening this song
will become,
can be and will become. You are got. He is God, and he has no idea, and like got like a prisoner in some kind of metaphysical chamber. Yeah, you'll appreciate that song in ways you never imagined by the time the film is done.
For sure. So we see it strike 6, "I Got You, Babe" plays, and then we followed by the radio host monologue that we also are going to get to know pretty well, and I'm just going to read it once because if you watch this movie, you're going to hear it a lot, and it's kind of iconic, frankly, at this point, because this movie has just stood the test of time. So it's, okay, campers, rise and shine, but don't forget your booties, because it's cold out there. It's cold out there every day. What is this, Miami Beach? And talk about how there's a blizzard coming. And it just, it clearly annoys Phil. I don't think he's the type of person to appreciate little DJ radio banter. He doesn't seem like that guy.
But again, too, like it's called out there every day. Kind of, again, you have no idea what kind of foreshadowing that is. All these little elements that are just kind of there to tease you when you realize later
when they talk about the question on everybody's chapped lips. This is the groundhog will see a shadow. Like it's a cute little intro. It's a very two radio DJs of the time, mind you, but not so much Phil's vibe. And so we see Phil start his day, and he runs into some people that we are going to see reoccur over and over and over. But as he starts, again, he's an asshole here at the beginning. Yes. And so he walks out into the hallway, and a man greets him very kindly and jovially, like, "Good morning, are you going to see the groundhog? And do you think we're going to get, like, extra 6 weeks of winter? When do you think spring will be?" And Phil replies that he's like, I'm predicting March 21st for spring, which is a very asshole thing to say, because as he's leaving, the guy's like, "That's a good guess. I think that's actually the first day of spring." He kind of realizes like he was just had a guy be an asshole to him, but
he just basically showed him the Wikipedia entry on his phone and then walked off. The modern or the past equivalent.
And so he goes downstairs where he meets the proprietor of this bed and breakfast, Mrs. Lancaster, where he also is a bitch to her and stuff. He's just kind of rude. She asks him about the blizzard and the weather, and then he launches off into a giant weather diatribe from his previous, like talking about the blizzard. And then he was like, "Oh, did you not actually want to talk about the weather? Were you just making like stupid chit chat?" And she's
"Don't you know who I am?"
Yeah, she's very taken aback.
You dare to talk weather with me? I'm going to style on your ass.
Man.
Yeah, and so then he turns into weather robot and teaches her. Just what a schmuck.
But as we mentioned, he's anxious to get out of this town, and so she catches him on the way out and is like, "I do think you'll be checking out today." And he turns back and in weatherman form says, "Chance of departure today, 100%.
Yeah. Well, cherry on top on his way out.
Which is cute, but Phil doesn't fucking know.
Just how wrong,
How wrong he is.
Yes.
So he starts through some of these scenes we're going to see repeated over and over. They don't go through every day or completely on the way out. We're going to see bits and pieces of these, but the first time, this first bit is pretty much everything we see. So he passes a homeless man, notably. He's flagged down by a man that recognizes him that Phil clearly does not recognize from his time in high school.
Needle-nosed Ned.
Phil Connors, who comes up to him and talks to him about, "Oh my gosh, we're an old high school acquaintance. I dated your sister before you told me to stop." Which was a nice detail or whatever on that.
Here to bedevil Phil is Ned Ryerson, Needle-nosed Ned the Head. The actor, what's his name?
Stephen Tobolowsky.
Yeah, he's been in so many things. I'm trying to think of all the different movies and TV shows he's been in. He's one of these actors that frequently plays secondary characters, but is hilarious at doing it.
I think that's why it's hard to nail him down. Like, I had to sort of look at his stuff myself, and there's not anything that like crazy jumps out to me. But he was in Memento as Sammy Jenkins, as the guy who clearly has amnesia and sort of just who resets in his own day, actually, in a time film after this, and with Christopher Nolan's effort there. That's probably the biggest one I'd call him out as. But notably, and I wrote this down because he's just a dirtbag like us. He actually has his own podcast called The Tobolowsky Files with autobiographical stories from his own life and acting career. So,
how dare you equate me to you and Steven?
Just a winning career path that we're all on here. But
yeah.
But Phil clearly does not recognize this guy and is kind of trying to disengage. But Ned is just too glomming on and friendly to really pick up the vibe Phil's laying down.
Well, Ned is just his entire. He's a vibe in his own right. He is the unstoppable force to Phil's immovable object. But yeah,
it's a great way to phrase it. Yeah. Phil, when he's trying to disengage, says things such as, "Ned, I'd love to stand here and talk with you, but I'm not gonna," and starts walking off. But Ned follows him. Yeah, he's just you can't get rid of this guy.
And on his way, trying to get away from Ned, he takes a step off the sidewalk and falls right into a sinkhole, like a pit, right there, just filled with water. Again, we don't really understand this now. But again, one of these nice little symbolic gestures. The first step is a doozy, as Ned then jokes,
sort of
right?
Jokes
but as we'll discover later, the first step is a doozy. Again, but we don't really understand. But like this is basically Ned kind of as like a specter of mockery and foreshadowing on this hero's journey. Like there's. I don't know. Like again, just watching this film now, like there's something going on there. Like Ned is not just a hilarious character, even though he is a hilarious character. He's actually kind of like revealing a clue, and like you don't really know yet.
For sure. And like he's just a funny guy in that. He's an insurance salesman, as we find out. That plays a bit role in the movie. Really not too much, but it is funny because the way he disengages as he goes to step in this puddle when he's like, I gotta get the fuck out of here, frankly, is Ned's like, I sell insurance. We should get together. What are you doing for dinner? And Bill Murray says, he doesn't bother coming up with a good excuse. He says something else. He just fucking says, not you. I'm not going to dinner with you.
Brutal. Yeah.
So, but yeah, Bill Murray soaks a shoe on that as Ned's kind of like, oh, there's lots of Disney back there, just being a fucking goober himself. So Phil's in a bad mood when he arrives to the Groundhog Day festival because he's just been accosted by somebody and now has soggy shoes.
And the festival takes place at Gobbler's Knob, which we'll get to this at the end of the episode, but I think this is the gayest moment. I'll circle back to this, but
it's
Gobbler's Knob
could be reversed to be quite a gay locale for sure. If a gay bar was named Knob Gobblers, I wouldn't be shocked at the slightest.
Gobbler's Knob, would you know if it's this or a gay bar? I don't know. Yeah. Anyway,
so it is. It's an outdoor festival venue. He's not late, I guess, but he meets Rita and Larry there as they've already been set up to film and are ready to just launch off into it. And Phil launches off into a sort of practice, rehearse monologue type something. You can tell it's not. I mean, he's done this for 4 years now at this point. He doesn't give a fuck about this, frankly, but he's very professional on screen, if nothing else, in what we've seen so far. You can rely on him for that.
He starts anyway.
Well,
right?
again,
he gets about halfway through professional, and then he just kind of phones it in. Well, we'll see what the scroll's doing later, and then just he tries for a bit, but then the real Phil kind of. Again,
when he's not locked in a devastating time loop, he's professional on camera. We see that start to slip pretty quickly whenever he's like, oh my God, I have to actually do this again.
And again, just a film just filled with these little symbolic touches right after the actual groundhog, Puxatawny Phil, is brought out, and the town elders lift him up and show him, and then read their proclamation about the groundhog. They declare that, yes, the groundhog saw his shadow and there will be 6 more weeks of winter. And then immediately after that, we see Phil's shadow, right? He's professional. And then right after the shadow has been seen, we see him just kind of schmuck it off. And again, we'll have a lot to talk about the imagery and the trope of blizzards, but also of seeing shadows, right? We see Phil's shadow all the time in these moments when he is just a shitty person, just an asshole to everyone around him. We keep seeing his shadow. And if that means that it's 6 more weeks of winter, what does that mean for this other Phil? What does he do for you?
I have in my notes, I'm like, in a visual medium, it's easy to not mix up these Phils. However, we might call that one Fuzzy Little Phil or something just to make sure that we're not mixing that up.
I guess there's Pittsburgh Phil and Puxatawny Phil.
Because Phil Connors, in his little monologue talking about, if the groundhog's going to see a shadow, actually drops one of at least 2, if not more, Dirty Harry references in it, talking about it. Does Phil feel lucky when he's going to see a shadow?
Yeah, you're right.
We see him in full Dirty Harry get up later. But yeah, Fuzzy Little Phil sees a shadow, much to the disappointment of the crowd. Oh, no! And we'll learn that Phil is going to have his own disappointment of having much more than 6 weeks of his own personal winter.
Yeah. So after this scene with, at Gobbler's Knob with the actual groundhog, they realize that, let's see, let me check my notes here.
They're taking off. They're just headed for home. Like, we really don't spend too long in the city because, again, Phil does not want to.
That's right. This first day, it just kind of it cuts back to the hotel. He's taking a shower. I guess they've discovered that they're going to be stuck. The blizzard's in. They can't leave. And then it just kind of.
I don't even think they do that, frankly. I think they're just in the van. They're headed back to the tunnel type stuff.
Yeah.
But the blizzard is in the opening scene. The blizzard from the opening scene reference where Phil says, it's going to blow past us. It's not going to hit us or whatever. He's been cocky about it all day. Has, in fact, actually blocked the roads in the tunnel.
Yeah.
And we see Phil get out of the van and go talk to the cop to be like, no, you don't understand. I want to get the fuck out of here. And the cop's like, you don't understand. Actually, it's freezing. And he says, you have two choices, sir. You can either go back to Punxsutawney or you can freeze to death. And we see Bill Murray's character really think about it. He says, I'm thinking.
Would death be preferable to returning to Punxsutawney? And it almost is.
Maybe,
almost.
Actually, if we had to go back in hindsight.
I don't know. We could argue that you could kind of look at this film as like, is he trapped in purgatory? Did he actually die? And he actually was going through purgatory. Maybe he did just decide to stand out there and freeze to death. I kind of wonder.
That's a very interesting thought because we really don't like certain movies like Palm Springs that we talk about as like a time loop thing. They have a very clear reason why this time loop is happening, whereas we really don't get one here. There is a popular theory I'll get to in just a moment.
We can theorize, but we're never offered a clear answer, right? Yeah, and we'll talk about that later. But arguably, what happens plot wise is that yes, Phil and crew return to Punxsutawney to ride out the storm. Though I guess you could argue that maybe metaphorically he does freeze to death. Again, those some recurring tropes, being frozen in place, but also dying and being reborn. Like I guess in some ways maybe this is. I don't know. This is the first act of him like freezing to death and dying, and then being reborn to maybe try again.
For sure.
But anyway, thus begins our loop. They return to Punxsutawney. We see Phil try to take a shower.
Just to go back to what this could be on the theory thing. The next thing that happens is actually it shows him in a sort of gas station or even laundromat. I forget, but he's on the phone. He's trying to get out of there.
That's right.
And he's like, yes. Are all the long distance phone lines down? He has a great line because he's a sassy little bitch this whole movie where he's like, what about the satellites? Is it snowing in space too and whatnot? Or he talks about are there lines for celebrities or emergencies? And we don't hear what the lady says back to him, but he says, I'm both. I'm a celebrity and I'm in an emergency. And as he's on the phone, somebody walks by with a snow shovel and hits him in the back of the head.
Yeah.
And that is one of the theorized things of like what could have set this time loop off.
Maybe. A good point. Maybe this is all some kind of, concussion event, a coma dream or something.
Right. There are neurologists in the film. Actually, Harold Ramis plays the neurologist in the film. It's his cameo there.
And also, if we want to get real crazy with it, they establish that there's electromagnetic interference. There's a blocking of causality between Punxsutawney and the rest of the world for this brief moment, right? No communication, no one can leave or enter. It's just sealed off in this kind of physical and electromagnetic bubble. They kind of briefly hint at this, which nice touch. Again, once again, I like a film just full of these nice touches.
It's very unclear where this happens, and I'll cover that later in a bit because I think in the script there actually was a reason for this, but it's almost better that it isn't revealed. It's not like something that's like a supernatural force. We don't have anything where like an antagonist or a villain. It's just a thing happening to Phil, and frankly, it leaves the viewer, you, to wonder about it, and that's why I think it's kind of nice.
It also just illustrates that he's in his own private hell. Just the world keeps dumping on Phil, according to Phil. So,
and true form with Phil there. The next thing we see is him at a bar bitching about it, and then that's where we get the cold shower scene right afterwards, where he does a lovely bit of physical comedy, like as he's just grabbing the shower to be like, oh no, and then he walks in the hallway to find Mrs. Lancaster and was like, is there not any hot water? And she's like, oh, there wouldn't be today, and he's like, Of course not. It's just.
I wondered about this for a moment. Like, did I miss something? Is that like an enigmatic reference to something, or is it just small towns?
I assume it's just because there's a blizzard and it's like
could just be that
93 or something. I mean, we already covered the scene where he's like, they don't have cell phones, they don't have all sorts of stuff. Like, it kind of, I would have sworn this movie was made in the 80s. If you put a gun to my head, I would have guessed 1987 maybe.
But that was that was hardly like the before times as far as heating heating bed and breakfast.
Well, in a small town, I mean, I guess is what I'm saying too. I don't know. Punxsutawney is the before times.
Yeah, I
we
guess.
Sort of get a vibe. It is like a very red brick,
the
tiny
land
town.
that time forgot. Kind of, yeah.
But after the shower, and I mean that little scene with Miss Lancaster, the next scene we see is we cut to the alarm hitting 6 again, and curiously, playing "I Got You, Babe."
Yeah.
And then
It's not as lighthearted now of a song, because now it seems like a threat.
Well, Phil thinks, he remarks that they're playing yesterday's tape because they go into the same DJ diatribe, and he's just sure at this point, he's like, they're just idiots that just mess this up, frankly.
Yeah.
He has not quite gone into realization yet, but he's soon to, because he's about to leave and have the exact same interactions with everybody.
Yeah, he's noticing that just every single person that he bumped into the day before, he's bumping into again. He meets the guy in the hallway.
He sees it's not snowed outside, frankly, when he looks out the window.
The innkeeper has exact same lines of conversation, is reacting like nothing has happened. But yeah, he sees there's no blizzard, there's no snow. Just it does not make sense, and the first inkling of something being quite wrong or setting in, but he hasn't quite figured out that.
No, and I mean, he pins that guy up against the wall that greets him, and it's like, what day is it? It's very strongly reacting to this. And he goes downstairs, talks to Mrs. Lancaster, and in that scene where she's repeating the same lines, he says, "Mrs. Lancaster, have you ever had deja vu?" And receives in response, "I don't think so, but I can check with the kitchen."
But boom.
Which tickled me to death.
How quaint.
When asked if he's checking out today, though, he no longer answers 100%, and he says, in a very unsure way, he's like, chance of departure is like 80, maybe 75%, because he's just not sure what's happening here quite yet.
Yeah. The weather's getting a little bit harder to predict in big ways for Phil.
So he runs, he's walking the same path, passes the same homeless guy, runs into Ned Ryerson, who I guess I should mention at this point is very annoying and obnoxious. Like, it feels not wrong to disengage from this person. Ned says things like, bing, and am I right or am I right or am I right? In a way that...
But Ned will not be evaded. He sticks to Phil like a curse. And this second day, our day when we realize that a loop has begun, day 2 of this. Phil tries to dodge Ned. It's a hilarious scene where he like pushes him away, and Ned just in great physical comedy, just kind of gets pushed back, kind of hunches down, and quickly reverses his momentum like he's tied to Bill Murray on a string. It's great physical comedy. I'm not doing it justice by describing it.
And it prompts again the watch out for that first step, it's a doozy, which leads Phil even further into this. But he's now very, very obviously suspicious he's living the same day twice, and so when he gets to Groundhog Day and old Gobbler's knob, he asks Rita to slap him in the face hard, which she has no problems doing right away.
She doesn't really hesitate, and she doesn't really show glee, but she doesn't show dislike of it. Again, her facial expression is just perfect. It's so measured. Go Angie McDowell.
And so he still shakes it off, though. Phil gets in his position for a little monologue, and he gives a very shaky version of the monologue, which is also kind of funny. He says, "Well, it's Groundhog Day again," which to the viewer would potentially just mean it's that time of year again. But to us, it's like again.
It's much more much more imminent this second time around.
And then we kind of don't see what happens the rest of the day. We get more into what's happening later in the day as we see more loops happen, and we just cut to him being back at the same unexpectedly cold shower, and then being on the phone with somebody, where he's clearly told over the phone that there's nothing that can be done about the blizzard until tomorrow, where Phil says, well, what if there is no tomorrow? There wasn't one today. And he gets hung up on because that's probably a fucking weird thing to say to somebody. But from Phil's perspective, it's very true.
I mean, if you don't understand what's going on, it's like, man, it's dramatic. Jeez. Dude.
We see the clock on the bedside table read 4 a.m., and Phil sort of eyes it up, and he thinks to himself, what can I do to sort of make sure, just test this out? And so he breaks a pencil, and he puts the broken halves on the bedside table.
Yeah. He comes up with a clever experiment, right? You know, if he's not in a loop, that pencil's going to be broken the next morning. And, of course, that is what should happen. But what does happen is that, once again, it's Cher and Sonny Bono on the radio. It's 6 a.m. and they got you, babe. except this time, we know it's not just a threat. It's it's a promise. It's a promise fulfilled. They got him.
And the pencil's intact. He wakes up and he's like, "Oh shit, that's not gonna be good."
It's day 3, and it's unmistakable to Phil now. He's in a time loop. Something is very wrong. You can see it on his face. You can see how he's reacting. He's in full panic mode. Let's see.
He races out at this point. Yeah, I mean, he's fully shook. He doesn't engage with the usual people interactions. He just kind of brushes them off. No, I don't really want to talk to you. He doesn't shoot the Groundhog Day segment, as we talked about, where he starts to slip a bit more professionally because he's like, what's the point? I'm not going to do this same stupid thing over and over. I already hate it. And so he tells Rita to meet him at the diner after she's done with the story.
And if you, again, we, the audience, we can understand his reaction. But you got to imagine, if you don't know what's going on, he's having a full emotional, psychological breakdown. All of a sudden, he goes from the schmuck you rode in with to this, just full on, like, totally in the other direction, psychotic meltdown.
And to everybody not in this loop or that doesn't know or remember any of this, he's just derelict in his work. He's just acting like more of an asshole, but frankly, one that's acting very concerning at this point. And so they go to the diner. She doesn't really know what to do with that when he tells her that he's reliving the same day over and over, because why would she? She says, let's talk about it back in Pittsburgh. But Phil, obviously more in the know than her, says, we can't talk about it back in Pittsburgh because of the blizzard. And so Phil at this point goes to the doctor's office to be like, what is wrong with me?
Rita sends him to a neurologist. They take an x-ray. They don't find anything with an x-ray. And unfortunately, they don't have any other diagnostic equipment. And they can only recommend going to Pittsburgh, which we know is not an option. Phil knows is not an option.
Right. And again, this neurologist is played by Harold Ramis. He has this little bit part here, which I love when directors do, frankly. I mean, like Tarantino and Shyamalan are the biggest ones that have this like sort of quirk or whatever. Sure. I know there's a lot more out there, I'm sure. But it's funny to see them in their movies as they pop up. So the doctor then suggests, I mean, if you can't do this, can't go get more scans or go to Pittsburgh, go in to see a psychologist.
This poor psychologist, too.
He's adorable. He's way out of his depth.
He is not prepared for Phil and his unique condition.
He has a very friendly and competent vibe about him, but he talks about how he has like a smoker or like an alcoholic or like a couple or two.
He's proud. He's proud that he's moved up to having an alcoholic patient, but that's his speed right now, and it's not sufficient for Phil.
And hilariously, whenever they're talking about it, and he's like, "Well, what can you do for me, doctor?" The psychologist ultimately suggests, he's like, I think we should meet again. How's tomorrow for you?
In response, Phil puts a pillow over his face and starts punching the pillow while the psychologist fumbles with his notepad and is that a loss for words?
And yeah, Phil's just feeling not understood at all or heard in his dilemma. I mean, because anybody he's presented this to is like, I don't think there's anything wrong with you, or there's nothing weird about my day. So it's he's alone. He's very alone in this, and frankly, we saw that in the beginning. He is an alone man. He has no connections really. Nobody's tight enough with him to believe him right off. He sort of has to develop strategies to sort of get people to even listen to him about this stuff.
And that is a very good point. He's starting to get increasingly isolated from the people around him, from the world, from reality. Really, this time loop, it's throwing him for a loop. Basically, he just starts at this point becoming kind of unmoored. He realizes that there are no consequences for his actions. He after his attempt with the psychologist, he's
at a bowling alley commiserating with two sort of randoms.
Two locals, Gus and Ralph.
This could be a scene that was frankly like spliced or transcribed a bit, because some of the cut scenes involve him just developing a lot of skills. One of them is bowling a perfect game.
Yeah.
And so we don't see that in the movie, but here he is at a bowling alley for some reason, just talking to two random yokels that he is just sort of, I don't even think he gives a shit that they're there or they're them. He's just talking to himself and is happy to have somebody listen to him because he's a celebrity. He loves that. But he talks about the day he had in the Virgin Islands where he had pina coladas with a girl, and I'm going to quote him, made love like sea otters, bemoaning why he couldn't have had that day over and over, frankly.
Which, audience, if you are knowledgeable about how sea otters copulate, please, can you confirm that they have sex in a way that is
consensual? I feel like, aren't they like rapey with dolphins or something?
Frantic and with abandon, just blissful and just without a care in the world.
It has to be majestic. I don't know. Yeah.
Just
very sleek.
Just sex on a beach over and over again in the sunset.
Up. Yeah. Just
Does that vibe sound like sea otters? Let us know. Anyway,
right in, otterologists.
Exactly. Yes, please. And so, yes, Phil, he then is getting drunk with Gus and Ralph, and they decide, you know what, let's get in the car and drive.
We asked them what they would do if they lived the same day over and over with no changes, causing one of the randoms to remark that that's his whole life, which was pretty bleak. He's just kind of like, damn, man, that's what I do every day. I live the same day.
Exactly. I mean, and this is this little moment where it's like, okay, there's a social metaphor here. You're kind of stuck in a small town and just you do the same thing and nothing really changes, and you just kind of freeze to death and die. Right. So they kind of, again, this is a film that could have been very, very, very heavy, but they kind of, they give you a taste of this broad philosophical and social conversation, and then just kind of continue. And I don't know, I appreciate that. It would have been a different film if they just, again, like if Bill Murray had more of his way and they were just more philosophical and stuff like that. I don't know, but maybe it's better.
Hit the same.
Yeah, maybe it's a better film that it wasn't like that.
There's so much comedy sprinkled around. I mean, they even have, as they're leaving the bar with these guys, one guy can't stand up straight. He keeps falling over. His friend stands him up for a second and is like, "You're good, buddy." And then the guy falls down immediately onto Bill Murray again.
a lot of good physical comedy.
And that man is also drunk because he goes to get the car. He's like, "I'm not going to let you drive, buddy that can't stand." But he gets the car and he pulls over and he's like, "I don't think I should be driving." And Bill Murray's like, "No, I don't think so, buddy." So as he's in the car with him, he then asks them sort of again, like, what would they do in this situation? And they talk about how they would have no consequences. They could do whatever they wanted. And this prompts Bill Murray, as he's behind the wheel, to be like, you know what? They're fucking right. And he just swerves, hits a mailbox right in front of a cop. He starts to drive down the railroad tracks and saying, like, why shouldn't we do whatever we want? And one of his drunk passengers is like, I actually kind of agree with don't drive down the railroad tracks on like a...
Yeah. So we see one of two options that you can take when presented with a major existential crisis, right? You can maybe go down the light or the dark path. And at this point, Phil goes down the dark path. He realizes that in a world with no consequences, one can do whatever abusive, horrible, destructive thing one wants, and it doesn't matter. You just rinse, repeat, start over again. You're absolved. Hey, cool. You can do whatever you want.
And he's really testing it right now because he's not had quite the... This is just the third loop. Frankly, we get the vibe that he's been there, again, for decades, if not more. The original script had it that he was going to be there for 10,000 years.
Some indeterminate amount of days go by. We get... The film unfolds in montage in one form or another a lot of times, and so we see a number of days, and they could be one right after another, but they could just be the various moments of the phase that Bill Murray is in. Right? We see when he enters Punxsutawney and is just himself, very egocentric. But he doesn't understand what he's now in, and now in this next phase, he's understanding what he's in, and he's exercising his power.
For sure. He starts to focus on different things. And notably, he's not in his suicide era yet because he's driving near a train and does swerve at the last second. And as he eventually wrecks the car and the cop comes up to him, he does, just being a little stinker, order 3 cheeseburgers. His drunk pastor leans over and is like, pancakes! And Bill Murray leans to the officer and is like, is it too early for pancakes? Which is just...
Great moment.
Very cute. But then that whole thing wraps up by, it shows the jail bar sort of closing on Phil there, and then he wakes back up in his bed, though, which only further empowers our sociopathic main character, mind you, because, now he really knows that, oh, my God, there are no consequences.
He starts binge eating. He starts trying to manipulate Nancy, this good-looking woman that he encounters. And this is admittedly pretty creepy when you think about it. It's funny because, we're kind of, along for the ride of, Bill Murray's character through this, but he's soliciting information or getting her to reveal information about herself, like where she went to high school and what's the name of English teacher and all this stuff.
She comes up in a second. We'll just stop you there for that bit. What we do here next is he does, you mentioned he cuts the diner with Rita where he's ordered all the baked goods while also lighting up a cigarette, mind you. Really showing that he doesn't give a fuck about
full indulgence.
But on the way there, he also, he preempts Miss Lancaster in conversation and kisses her on the mouth. Ned runs up to him, and in my favorite Ned interaction, he says, Ned? And then just punches him in the face and walks off because he really wanted to do that the first time, we get the vibe.
Just
but
clocks him.
Now that he knows he doesn't have to deal with consequences the next day.
And nobody on the sidewalk reacts. And that's what I find to just be the best part of this scene. These people, none of them react to this. And like in this moment, you just gotta wonder, is this actually like a village folk horror? Like these people, Punxsutawney is a strange place full of strange people.
And as he's leaving Ned, this is notably the first time he does not step in the puddle. We see that he is learning.
Yes, exactly. He dodges the pitfall. So that means that he has learned and transcended and become a better person. Well, no.
A teensy bit, yeah.
He's become, I guess, a more capable person, but he's not a morally better person at all. If anything, he's much worse.
No, absolutely not. We are not transitioned to being a good person in the slightest yet. He's sitting there with a cigarette in his baked goods, and Rita asks if he's worried about cholesterol, lung cancer, whatever, and says, "What makes you so special, Phil?" And well, if you only knew, but Phil remarks back that he doesn't worry about any of that now and doesn't even have to floss. He's really seeing the upside of this, frankly, as he's embracing the hedonism. And that kind of disgusts Rita, actually, because she does end up quoting a poem from 1805 for all my Sir Walter Scott heads out there. For him.
Yes.
The wretch
Shout
considered all in self, living shall forfeit fair renown, and doubly dying shall go down to the vile dust from whence he sprung, unwept, unhonored, and unsung. She really flexes her book knowledge on him to Phil's, just absolute not give a fuck about this attitude.
Just mic drop there, yeah. Yeah, exactly.
And he's a little offended by that she thinks he's egocentric, because why would she think that? That couldn't possibly be true. And this is when we see Larry and Rita roll out, and Phil says he's going to stay and finish his pile of baked goods. Yeah. And then that is where he catches his eyes caught by Nancy.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah.
And it is very funny. Yeah, go ahead. You talk about what was happening with her earlier, sort of how this all plays out with Nancy.
Just a creepo play for the ages, right? Asking her questions and getting information, and then whoop, 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 loop starts again, approaches her, of course, without, like her having any knowledge of what has transpired before, because there was no before for her. He then
asked her specifically her name, where she went to high school, and her 12th grade English teacher's name. Probably just enough to get to know, like, oh, I was in your class, don't you remember me, type stuff.
Creating fake familiarity to seduce Nancy.
Which was a weird thing to do as he's leaving. He just leaves after that third question. Nancy's like, wait, what the fuck? Like, hang on. Like, why do you... But we see him the next day, and he encounters Nancy in Gobbler's Knob, where Nancy is dancing, very white, much like I dance. She's just kind of bopping around, like a little moving her arms type stuff. I've seen you dance too, Tom, and this is a very Tommy dance move.
If you watch the background of the Gobbler's Knob scene, you'll see some classic white people dancing for sure. Just watch. You'll know what I mean, and you'll appreciate it. For sure.
And frankly, I mean, the more you watch it, you'll see bit characters pop up. Like, I mean, one of the ladies, it's like, come on, we're going to the Groundhog Day thing. Later in the film, this is piano teacher type stuff. I think you can see Nancy in that and whatnot. But he uses the information he just got from her the previous day to be like, Nancy, you remember me? Like, I definitely was in your past. Here's some details as to why. And Nancy sort of, in a very kind way, eventually is like, oh, yeah, I do remember you.
And this, and what I think, it looked like it was just one day. Again, it could have been a montage of various days where we can imagine Phil getting bits of information from Nancy, but at some point, one day transpires where Phil first meets Nancy, and by that night, he is proposing marriage to her.
And they're making out by the fire.
And she accepts. What a magical night.
Well, she specifically...
What a day.
She's very unsure because they're making out, and he calls her Rita.
Yes.
But as this makes Nancy unsure, Phil says that he loves her and says, in fact, I want to marry you. And Nancy's like, oh my God, that's so sweet. And they go back to making out, where Phil again calls her Rita, and Nancy has to say, Nancy. I guess...
Yeah.
To which Phil replies, whatever.
Whatever.
We 100% see what he's doing here. He's just using her. He's decided to not only use other things as his playthings, but people as his playthings. In a first hint of something more sinister that Phil is going to be doing here.
But we get another moment where we see that Phil does have a soft spot for Rita. Like when they first meet at the television studio in Pittsburgh, there's a moment where his otherwise kind of snarky look that he has on his face the entire time just kind of softens for a brief moment, and then here for a brief moment we get another glimpse that he's kind of smitten by Rita. Like even cold-hearted schmucky Phil can feel pangs of something,
and it's very much the first clue, because to me, I did not pick up on that at all. He, again, was an asshole to her in most of the scenes leading up to this, and so it is interesting, a little breadcrumb drop there of why would he say Rita? Why would that be?
Just these a few little moments, right, where Phil again, so many themes and tropes, but one of them that I think is definitely worth talking about. Phil, he starts being the immovable object, right? Nothing's gonna change Phil. He's gonna be a schmuck. He doesn't care about the world. He doesn't appreciate it. Whatever. But there are a few times when he starts being moved by Rita. And just this one person who actually just kind of takes that cynical edge off him. Just a moment.
She's very much his antithesis, and he'll sort of get to her in that. The next thing that happens is we do see the armored car scene you talked about, where we see, again, this is not a sequential day thing. We see in a montage where Phil is just sort of or just in the scene, that Phil has memorized all the details of what's about to happen in this. He talks about how, all right, this guy leaves the car, this security guard waits there, this dumb lady comes up, asks for a roll of quarters, oh my god, she dropped all the quarters, and then he says 3, 2, 1, walks up, and as everybody turns to look about the quarters scattering everywhere, he grabs a bag of money and walks off.
It's a very funny scene, and immediately afterwards we see him at night driving up in a Cadillac, and he steps out wearing like a Western luxe fantasy outfit.
It's Dirty Harry. It's very the Clint Eastwood.
Yeah, exactly.
And people might yell at us. I think it's a Mercedes. I legitimately went to look this up because I was like, I am not a car person. I am way too gay for that. And so, but it's a fancy car. We get Phil has spent that money quite well as he wanted.
Yes.
And he pops out in that cowboy outfit where he's doing his best cosplay, and his date pops out dressed in a maid outfit. Kind of shocked they're at a movie theater because he said they were going to a costume party.
Yeah.
He sees Nancy and says hi to her. And Nancy, not knowing who this is, just kind of just goes about her way. And the date's like, who was that? And he says, oh, that was my old fiance.
and he says it like Clint Eastwood. Someone I used to love, and now it's just a memory. To paraphrase. It's great.
It's very funny. He's having a good time on this day. Good for Phil, at least, I suppose.
But it's at this point when he starts turning his attention towards Rita. He realizes, well, maybe he could pull the Nancy trick on Rita, and he does. He starts doing the question game where he starts eliciting information about Rita. What are her likes? Where she went to college? What does she major in? Just all these nuanced details about her. And it's another one of these montages where we see just one day after another go by where he tries something, makes a mistake, makes a mental note about it, rinse, repeat, and we're back to that same point of the day once again. But this time, he has new knowledge and he's making progress, just one step at a time towards knowing everything about Rita.
He gets a really long checklist from her too. I wrote all this down because, frankly, she talks about what she wants in a life and stuff. But also when he's like, "What do you want out of a man?" She gets out that she wants an intelligent, a humble man, a romantic, courageous, has a good body, but isn't too into himself, looking in the mirror all the time. He's kind, sensitive, gentle. He loves animals and children. He plays an instrument, which will come back. Loves his mother, and then Phil's like, "That's all me." That's totally me.
He's right on board until the kind and sensitive part, and then it just goes downhill from there, as one can imagine.
But he's absolutely in on the Rita thing now. We see him next sabotage a van, ripping a part out, and then being like, "Oh no, the van's not working. Let's go get a drink at the bar."
And all to just buy more time with her so that he can glean more information. It's still very cynical. It's still showing that he's learning everything about everyone in that town, but he hasn't learned anything about himself.
Exactly.
Basically.
He's gathering information, but not lessons.
He hasn't learned anything that matters, even though he's learning everything about Rita, who he is very smitten with. It still doesn't really matter. It's not the right thing to be learning.
And so we get into a scene where he is at the bar with Rita, and he keeps making missteps, and then the scene resets because he clearly turns her off at times, and he's like, oh, well, shit. And then we see it the next day happens, or the next day, because he notes her drink orders, sort of gets into her charming with that. They talk about what they will toast to, and Phil's like, to the Groundhog, and Rita's like, I always toast world peace, and then just kind of turns away, and he's like, all right, fine.
Yeah.
We'll toast world peace next time.
And her drink of preference, sweet vermouth on the rocks with a twist. Ooh, jeez. Man, that's a sweet drink. Oh, God.
I think this was Harold Ramis's wife's drink, was where this came from, for one thing.
I feel like we should have prepared 2 of these for ourselves and we should have been sipping on them the entire time just to really get into the headspace.
But the audience wouldn't be able to see our face when we take a drink of that.
Man. Yeah, anyway.
So he takes Rita after that bar scene to a chocolate shop where she asks him, how do you know so much about Punxsutawney? Don't you hate this place? And Phil remarks that he's spent a lot of time there, which is a funny little lampshade over the fact that, he definitely has at this point. And a little fun audience wink.
Yes, exactly.
And then Rita then asks Phil if he's ever had deja vu. And Phil's like...
Didn't you just ask me that?
Yeah, didn't you just ask me that?
Yes,
he's such a sassy man.
But through this manipulative process, he does slowly make progress with Rita, and is really charming her. They get to. It's night and Rita's still with them. They're at the bed and breakfast. Yeah. They go to dinner and.
You definitely get the feeling that it is a slow process because even if we don't see every scene reset, we see Phil say things that he would not say when he's talking about how he would love to go live in the mountains and how he just wants kids and stuff.
Yeah.
And every time he gets to a point where he starts to fail, it's very clear because he's like, "What did you major in before broadcasting?" And she's like, 19th century French poetry, to which he bursts out laughing and is like, oh my God, what a waste of time, which really ruins the night with Rita. And so the next part of the montage, she's like, he recites his little own French poem to that. And she's like, you speak French? And he's like, oui.
Yeah. All of his initial, responses to the next moment of decoding Rita revealed that he's still very egocentric. All his answers are just basically himself, right? And his exploding into contemptuous laughter when she reveals her college major, it just highlights that these are two very different people. Just wow,
it's not natural. They would not have gotten along if this was just a regular day or date because he's at every turn just about failed the situation, and it really plays into the next sort of big line that's happening when he's walking her home.
And it again just highlights the vast distance between these two people, right? Like where Phil starts and where he ends up by the end of the film, but also just where he starts and where Rita is. It takes this interminable number of days to get to that distance. But just as we're about to see, Phil really changes as a person. But these first moments reveal that, ooh boy, yeah.
But if he didn't have this godlike power, it wouldn't have happened.
Yeah, exactly. It's just that much of a gulf between the kind of people these two are.
Because as you hit it, he's not changing. He's just learning. He's learning straight up information, data points, and facts at this point. Yeah. And so when he's walking Rita home, Rita says it's been a perfect day, and you can't plan a day like this. To which Phil remarks, well, you can. It just takes an awful lot of planning. Again, lampshading the fact that he has done this many times. He did plan this out. He's learned through his own little choose your own adventure where he's chosen the wrong adventure. Wrong. Right. Okay, all right. Now note down the right one, and then we'll go right, and we'll do that one again, and we'll have this little path out. And we see that he's just sort of trying to sleep with her to a degree, and that's has all been sort of a means to an end type something. He invites Rita inside to where she is very unsure about it, and they begin to kiss by the fire. But Rita says it's a bit fast for her and is trying to leave.
Yeah. So it's the almost perfect day, but just at the very, very end, Phil's shadow reemerges just at the very end, and it's just he has become supremely manipulative. He's basically become the god of this little bubble that he is in, but just,
and I think it angers him. You don't see him necessarily get irate or anything, but he's very much being like, no, why would you leave? Come on, stay. It has to be tonight. And granted, he doesn't have it tomorrow, mind you, but he has worked so hard to get to this point. He has learned every interaction through the day, through the night, and he's finally at what he sees as his goal, but he just can't quite reach it, and he doesn't understand why yet necessarily.
It becomes clear, and even when you look at if you were to pause right at this moment where Rita is just musing out loud that, oh, what a perfect day. It's the exact halfway point of the film, right? And it's to this point where she almost tips over. She almost tips over where she kind of like really falls for Phil, but just doesn't quite. And we see Phil's shadow, but she sees Phil's shadow. She sees the real Phil. Like, once again, it's like it was a perfect day, but it's like, that. And
she's very astute in doing so, because Phil tries the same thing he tries with Nancy. He says he loves her, and Rita kind of gets mad at this. It's like, you don't love me. Like, you don't even know me.
Yeah. Rita is no one's fool, and it's why she's intriguing. Like we've seen through this process why Phil could be smitten by her, and why we as the audience should be too. Right? She's a complicated person. She's a full complicated. Just she's not easy. She's not fooled, and that's not to be condescending. That's what makes her worth it, as it were. Like we understand why she is the prize.
For sure. And again, she's not fooled by his stuff, because she starts going over in her head the day, and she's like, how did you know that I loved all these things? And she obviously does not jump to a time loop situation. Why would she? That's crazy. So she says, like, what, did you call up all my friends? Did you learn these things? How did you do this? But at the end of that, she says Phil only loves himself, while Phil remarks that's not true, because he doesn't even like himself, which is cute, but also true, probably. Like, we get the vibe. Again, he's alone, and he's not particularly happy with his life, and so it's played for comedic value, but I think it's true.
But it also just perfectly diagnoses him, right? He's fallen in love with Rita, but he does not love himself, right? He still doesn't, right? He's still the same kind of turd that he was at the beginning of the film, right? He's learned all the wrong lessons that he could have been getting out of here, right? But yeah, fundamentally, he doesn't love himself. Yeah.
And at this point, we see he tries to go back and basically undo this, to be like, okay, I messed up here, but just like all the other mess ups, I can go back and fix this if I just do this. But we get a montage of him failing at this, and Rita slapping him like 7 to 10 times, basically all ending in the same way.
Yeah, they get to the almost perfect moment, but just every time he tries to recapture it, it gets further and further away from him, until to the point where it's just the slap montage, just slap, 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 slap. I counted about 6 of these, and then we get the last one. He opens the door, lets her back into her hotel, and again, a great moment. This, just all these wonderful little like symbolic touches. He's walking past these carved ice statues of Punxsutawney Phil, and it's just, yet again, we see Phil is frozen in place, and it's just he's frozen in place still. It's six different statues to show him this, like it's because that's what it takes. And I think it's probably about 6 different slaps too, right? So just still
it's been
frozen
weeks at this point for sure. Yeah. Like he has been there for probably months. It has to have been months at this point, based on everything we've seen. And so he's a bit defeated at this point, because I think he does finally realize he's sort of at the end of the road for Rita, and so he mopes into the Groundhog Day festival, and sort of. The next thing we see around that is he's just sitting in bed, just monotonely repeating the DJ monologue that comes up, like, hey there, campers, just cold out there, don't forget your booties, because he just, it's very grating on him to have heard this 1,000 times probably at this point.
And again, just the way that he says it, it's just, the subtext was just always there, and now it could not be any more obvious. It's cold out there. It's cold out there every day.
He does say it in a sort of very ominous way.
Yeah,
and then the next bit that follows that is he's downstairs with a lot of old people in the lounge drinking whiskey, watching Jeopardy, where all these old people are incredibly wowed by the fact that he knows every answer. And at one point, before Alex says even 2 words, he turns back to Mrs. Lancaster and says the answer, and she looks horrified. She's like, oh my God.
Yeah.
But he gets a round of applause, which is actually a Jeopardy tradition. If you make a run on a category, people applaud you on that. And so it was a cute little Jeopardy note as the old people are just like, oh my God, wow, you're so smart. Like, listen to you with your Lake Titicaca answers and stuff.
But as we mentioned before, this begins his suicide era. We see Bill Murray kill himself in a variety of ways. He casually steps in front of a heavy truck. He jumps off out of a church bell tower.
He's smashing the alarm clock when he wakes up.
Yeah,
he's definitely showing his mental state is fully declining as he feels more trapped and stuff.
Yeah, he had this one chance at something worthwhile in this time loop trap, and that was with Rita, but that has become impossible. And now he's looking for the exit through death, but death does not help him.
That's like right there in what's happening. What he does next is he at one point sort of wakes up after saying the monologue in increasingly depressing ways from the DJs, saying the groundhog must be stopped. And as the festival team is packing up the groundhog, Phil steals the truck they just put Fuzzy Little Phil in. Just for you, the listener reference, so you don't mix up these Phils.
He gives this dead inside delivery of his presentation on camera and surmises also on camera, Phil's got to be stopped. And we see him say to Rita ominous things like, "I'm at the end of me, Rita. There's only one more like to summarize, it's great, but it's just, again, if you went from the day before to just today, 0 to this, and you're Rita, you must be thinking, oh shit. and again, as someone who has done media production, I've never had a moment like with an actor quite like this, but I've had moments when an actor just is, oh man, I don't want to know some things, and it's just oh god, how do you manage the talent sometimes?
The diva of talent,
the best producer in the world, poor Rita the producer. Just a shout out to talent managers everywhere. Yeah,
and she does say, I think there's something really wrong with Phil. Right as Phil goes over and steals a groundhog, and as he's driving off, Rita says, "Why would anybody steal a groundhog?" And Larry, Chris Elliott, perhaps revealing too much about Larry, says, "I can think of a couple reasons." Pervert. I'm like, Larry, we just jumped right to that.
Chris Elliott, yeah.
So now there's a manhunt, or a rodent hunt, perhaps, going on, if we're being very specific, with Phil leading the police, the news van, and the festival crew in a sort of car chase, men in top hats chasing him.
Yeah, it's Keystone Capers galore. The town elders try to round up the posse, as it were, and they chase him to a rock quarry, right? And they got him cornered. Phil realizes he's cornered, and we get a scene of him ominously, very slowly driving back because he's trapped, and the music's swelling. You can just tell that he's about to floor it, and he does, and he drives headfirst towards him to make his break.
And we see him letting the groundhog drive because he does not give a shit at this point. It's like, mirrors.
By the way, the groundhog has been driving this entire time. He has surrendered to fate completely, and what a metaphor, right? The groundhog is in control. He controls nothing. He has surrendered to the arbitrary caprice of the groundhog, and he is now on a high-speed Thelma and Louise-esque driving chase.
Just as a side note, I have to imagine the scene was difficult to film, A, because apparently Bill Murray got bit twice by this groundhog at least and had to get a rabies scene situation, a rabies shot done afterwards. He improvised the line, "Don't drive angry," as we see the groundhog sort of climb over the wheel, as he's just trying to escape. It must have been a very odd, all right, now hold this groundhog, put his little tiny hands on the wheel, and then we're going to shoot you with this camera. Be comedic while wrangling this rodent. It must have been a very
movie magic. Sometimes you just get bit by rabid groundhogs. Sometimes that's how you make the magic. So,
rabid groundhogs named Scooter. Yeah.
Exactly.
Just as we need to call it all the actors of this film. Yeah.
Shout out to Scooter.
So he does. Human Phil takes the wheel.
Human Phil.
They sort of do. They end up in a spot. It looks like a dump or construction site where the locals realize that we've got him now. He's trapped in there. This is the only way out. And so we see Phil sort of rev the engine while pointing at them. He talks about his mental state type something, and they've. He ends up driving straight at them, but at the last second swerves off and drives off the cliff with both Phil still in the truck, and the truck ends. It lands
upside down.
Cabside down.
Yeah.
And in one of my favorite moments of the film, Larry says he could probably still be all right. He might be okay, but
immediately after that,
a second after that line hits, the truck explodes in a giant fireball. So he follows it up with, well, probably not now.
And then starts filming. Doesn't miss a beat.
And then absolutely starts filming. Well, there's like a horrible groundhog squeal noise they throw in there. Like,
That's right.
I had forgotten about that. I was like, oh my God, morbid.
Which, I mean, I guess I released the evil. It's just that Phil didn't live long enough to realize it. So, oh well. Yeah.
He did stop that groundhog, if nothing else, temporarily, I suppose.
But once again, death. Death
in his
is no
bedroom,
escape.
He wakes up, and so this is really the beginning of the suicide era, because he shambles down. He's like, if I'm back, I don't know what'll stop this, and so he goes down, grabs the toaster. As Miss Lancaster's like, do you want some toast? It's kind of confused as to why he took the entire toaster, but he fills up the bath and then just tosses the plugged-in toaster in, while downstairs we see the lights flicker and Mrs. Lancaster sort of be like, oh no.
Oh my. Yeah. It's a great scene.
And then we see just almost rapid fire after that. He flings himself in front of a truck. He jumps off a bell tower, as you mentioned. It's a kind of common theme in these movies, too, and not everyone, mind you, but again, Palm Springs, to bring it up, fantastic film, by the way. It's fairly recent, like I want to say 2021 or something, but absolutely, the main character, after living months and months, if not years, is just kind of like, well, death doesn't matter, and we'll just go through this and do some suicide stuff, but it never really works. It doesn't do anything like cathartic in the films.
Yeah.
It's just is sort of a moment that signifies desperation, or like, get me out of this however you can.
Phil maximizes whatever mode he's in when he's in his life without compunction and consequence era. He binge eats, is a serial womanizer and grand manipulator.
Gets money, gets women, gets food, a gluttony of all sorts.
Does whatever he wants. No consequences, no regrets. But in his darker era, he he alludes to how many times and how many different ways he's killed himself.
Oh, I have this list written down.
Yes. Please go ahead.
Scene, we sort of see him we skip a whole bunch of these, mind you, but he has Rita at the diner again. And he's explaining to her that he's a god, not the god, mind you, he says to her, but he is a god because he survived being stabbed, shot, burned, poisoned, electrocuted, hung, frozen, exploded, and burned. And he explains this all in front of a waitress who's just trying to take his fucking order, who is clearly like, what the fuck am I listening to right now? He's saying all these things, and she's like, well, the special today is blueberry waffles.
And once again, shout out to producers everywhere, managing your talent as they have the grandest of emotional and mental breakdowns and tell you they're God. You can't get much more crazy than that, I guess, or more of a insane situation as a talent manager. So there you go.
As the waitress is sort of leaving, though, Phil stops her. Her name's Doris in movie, and gives Doris's life story, and then proceeds to do so for a good chunk of the rest of the diner. He talks about an engaged couple where they're due to being married today, but she's getting cold feet, to which just blows up their whole day. She's like, "What? Yeah. Like, what do you mean?" And then
he it's a moment where he's desperate to have a connection again to the human world. Really, in some ways he has become a god, and he is not a person anymore. No person would have this kind of knowledge. No person could just die and come back again and again and again. Right? He kind of has become a god, but he wants Rita to understand that he is telling the truth, and he is desperate for her to believe him. And so he starts just giving her all the details about everyone in the diner. He just goes from one table to another, telling some salient, super personal detail about them to prove to Rita that he is telling the truth. He wants a connection with a person again.
And you wonder how he got some of these, frankly, because the next person he talks to is a gay waiter who he sort of outs as gay, like a little callously, frankly, if anything. But he talks about how he makes toy soldiers in his home at night, and he does this or that. And the waiter goes, "I am gay." It was kind of
I wouldn't say gay, just very matter of factly, like this is a waiter and he's gay, and just no judgment, no malice, just and he's gay. And
the waiter doesn't shock
and the waiter's like, yeah. I am.
Hey, how do you know that? Like, actually,
what do you know? Yeah, hey, you're right.
He talks about a Navy man. Anyone else Rita asks about in the diner, he's like, yeah, that person, I know that, I know them, I know this. And he also, in his godlike powers, predicts that in 5 seconds, to prove to Rita, a waiter is about to drop a tray of dishes, which we've seen this tray of dishes drop in at least 2 or 3 scenes before this, in a little Chekhov's disaster gun situation there. But it happens, and Rita is certainly shaken by it, because not only does Phil know everybody in this town he hates, purportedly, as far as she knows, he can predict the future now.
Yeah. Exactly. Again, going from the day before to Phil today, right? He hates this town and everyone in it, and now he is connected to all of them, knows everything about them, and is in almost in a way that there's no judgment. Like he is almost like, again, a god.
And he proves it immediately to her, because she's like, well, what do you know about me? Do you know stuff about me? And he rattles it off, because he's obviously, at this point, not got a lot to know about her.
Yeah, and it's very touching. Like he knows everything, about her, and it's a beautiful moment, right? That if there's anyone who has appreciated her beautiful quality, like her self, it is Phil at this point. Like he's still, he clearly he's still very much in love with her, but it's just, what can he do? He's completely divorced from people at this point. We definitely have a lot more to talk about with this film. Again, one of my favorites. So I definitely hope that you tune in shortly for part 2 of Groundhog Day, coming up next.